these are the upcoming events for November. So I was kind of looking through them. So what we got here, starting next Friday, which is going to be the third, I believe. I think it says it here. Yeah, the 3rd of November, next week. Uh, they're going to start running these events, and there's 3 of them. Now the 3 events we got. Number 1 is Crangled passives, and I think we've had this before. So all it means is all the passives in the game, everything from the small nodes all the way up to keystones, they're going to be randomly thrown around the whole passive tree. So really, it's and then you can't start as a scion too, which is kind of like, I guess that's their way of saying, okay, we don't want you to be scion because then you have a chance of just being right in the middle, and it would be easier to just quicker to get to each side and figure out where you want to get. So you still have to pick a character beyond, other than Scion, and start somewhere on the outer part. But that's fine. This one's a interesting one. I don't know how well it was received last time people played it. Uh, None of this is hardcore, so it's just jump in, make a character, try to figure out if you can build something depending on the character you pick, or maybe try re-rolling. If it's random, it says random completely, so that means that every time you make a character, it's gonna be randomized. So you can't like, oh, for an hour that this is the roles, and you just want to build the right character. I don't think it works that way. You're just gonna have to figure it out as you go. Look around at the passive tree as soon as you get to town, whatever. And then reaching level 90, 95, uh, you have a chance of all these cosmetics and loot. Sure, okay, cool. All right. So November 10th is when the second league starts, or the second temp or short league, Blast from the Past. So you got Sentinels and Lake of Kalandra coming back. Is that cool? Sure. Lake of Kalandra, very mediocre league, introduced us to a ring that is very broken, very very good. It's upper echelons of strong, unique items in the game. I actually found one in 3.22. That ring though has been transferred to normal loot. That tells me that they don't. I still don't think they're intending to bring Lake of Kalandra back unless they can make it into a more just almost like a harvest. So instead of creating the Lake of Kalandra, you just find a lake and boom, it's some randomly generated layout. That makes sense to me if they want to do something like that. Otherwise, I don't see the need of bringing Lake of Kalandra unless they intend on bringing the crafts as well, which was, a super huge gamble. In fact, I can see future gambling videos by using the Lake of Kalandra ring gamble. So what it would do is you would take a ring. Uh, Most of the time, you'd want it, or hopefully you would want it to have all 6 modifiers. You throw it into basically a Krangler, and it would spit out 2 rings. They would be the mirror of each other. And what it would do is it would kind of like double. I think it was like double the stats, or the modifier itself would get either doubled or it would be reversed. So you'd either take, you'd have plus 50 intelligence. It would either become minus 50 intelligence, or it could go double to 100 intelligence on that ring. And it only worked on jewelry. I think it also worked on amulets as well. So that's the whole crafting was, you're taking this gamble, and then you want to get as many of those, hopefully, to roll positive, and then things that are not detrimental to you to roll negative. And Doriani's prototype, that's a great way of getting negative lightning resistance rings. So it's a cool mechanic. It'd be neat to bring it back. I think if they do just like a randomized Lake of Kalandra here and there as the mechanic, that would make more sense. Stopping and selecting and figuring out what you want, not necessarily needed. Plus, with the amount of bloat in the game, I don't see a reason for that. If you just want to throw it in as just another thing that's there, fine. Um, Sentinel, on the other hand, I really like Sentinel. It also brings back recombobin recombinators. Why? Why? So recombinators, awesome, very awesome. What it would do is you would take two items, and then you would use a recombinator, and it would combine the two items, taking some of the stats from each side. Uh, Actually, Torchlight Infinite's current mechanic is similar to that. You make items in that, and it takes, and then it can increase and stuff. The whole point, one of the biggest things that people did with recombinators was they were trying to make multiple synthesis items. So you would get two items that had a synthesized, or I'm sorry, fractured. You'd have two fractured items, and then you try to get both fractured on one item. And then you could start rolling it, and you'd already have those two on there. Like you'd have two permanent T1, and it would be very easy to craft. Another thing people like to do in that was to make insane gloves, especially for Trinity builds. You would get the temple, the Alva temples. You would get the gloves out of those with those temple modifiers on it. So it'd be like high resistance and then increased critical strike against lightning, I think is one of them, or shock. You try to combine it to get like this insane triple mod, which would be tier 1 resistance on top of a damage mod. It was incredible, high end, and it'd be nice to see that again. But as you can see here, the last line, by the way, this event is not voided, so have fun crafting with recombinators. They're bringing that shit back. I have a feeling that they're bringing Sentinels back, and I hope so. I think Sentinel was a good mechanic. It was one of those ones where it's like high risk, high reward, hit the button, didn't have a lot of thinking really involved. You didn't have to like plan it out. You just went, okay, I want to focus on these types of Sentinels and do huge pack sizes, or specifically target just elites like rogue exiles and bosses. And yeah, great mechanic. I hope to see it come back. Then the last week, starting on November 17th, Shifting Stones. This one is, I think this one's a pretty I don't see it being a bad thing, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Shifting Stones. So we got this here. Basically what this means is every time you enter a zone, you're going to get a specific league mechanic combined with a keystone off of the Atlas passive tree. So if you can see here, you got Torment with the Speaker of the Dead, Blight with Cassia's Pride, and so on and so forth. 3 of these really don't mean much. It's not going to really affect you when you're playing because they're selectable. You can skip Delirium and Legion and Blight. You don't have to do them. The only 2 that you're going to have to deal with, I think, leveling will be the Tormented Spirits, which may or may not be a positive. And then Beyond, of course, that all has to do with the amount of mobs in the area. This is just early on, you're not going to deal too much with Beyond. It might get kind of a bit of a pain later on, but I don't think this mechanic's going to be that difficult to deal with. But it'll affect the Atlas as well. So be kind of interesting for endgame. Otherwise, this mod has an area. Okay, the mod that an area has will change every 15 minutes. So what does that mean? It's just a rotation. This was very similar to things like Tempest League, where I think it was like every hour or so, the type of Tempest would change. So this is how this works. So every 15 minutes, it refreshes. Then you got all your prizes. Same thing as the other 2. Everything ends on the 24th, and I'm assuming that what's going to happen is right after that, they're going to make an announcement for what season 3.23 is going to be. And I have a feeling that the next league we're going to get kind of an expansion, maybe a very simple league, like your like Sentinel, which again I think is coming back. So yeah, nothing here really stuck out. You don't have to do this on hardcore. It's and then with the Sentinel, like I said before, that crosses over, so it's not voided. Again, giving hints that Sentinel's coming back. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna be hitting all of these three. I'll see all of you there. All right, later.